Good afternoon, friends. Hope you're watching this online. This is part of the series that Pastor Michael and I have been sharing with you out of the Exodus. And I kind of have been preempting what he's going to talk about on Sunday to give you a little bit of background and maybe come at it from a little different direction, adding some depth or filling out some of the details historically in preparation for Michael's sermon on the Ten Commandments this Sunday. So hopefully if you can't worship with us physically, you can outside in our great outdoors amphitheater, then you can watch us online. So today I want to talk a little bit about Michael's sermon out of Exodus 20, and I'm going to explain some things about it. When God delivered the people of Israel out of Egypt, they embarked on a miraculous journey from North Africa to Palestine, and it should have taken them about 2 weeks. However, because of their fear and their disobedience, they embarked on the world's largest and longest backpacking trip in the history of the world. In Exodus 18, it's recorded that the Israelites' journey was interrupted in the Sinai desert by a man named Jethro, who was known as the high priest of the land of Midian. And it makes sense that Moses knew this land well, because it was in Midian that Moses fled when he was escaping Egypt for the first time. You might remember Moses escaped to this remote desert after he had killed a vicious Egyptian who was abusing an Israelite worker. So in retracing his steps, Moses reunited with Jethro, who was his father-in-law, the father of Zipporah, Moses' wife. It was also in this area that Moses had received his call to return to Egypt to confront Pharaoh in his burning bush experience 6 years earlier. In Exodus 19, Moses recorded that 3 months after escaping from Egypt, the Israelites reached the foot of Mount Sinai. There they spent 2 days in preparation to meet with God. And it was explained that on the third day, Moses received the Ten Commandments. These were a set of 10 guidelines by which Israelites could live their lives in a way that was pleasing to God and would bring harmony with one another. Through this agreement or covenant, God promised to bless the Israelites. They have formed an effective guide to godly living to the rest of us for over 3,000 years. In the following 10 commandments, there are 5 things that everyone can achieve if they follow God's instructions. Number 1, my first observation is the 10 commandments give us a glimpse into understanding who God is. The 10 commandments are an expression of God's heart and character. Before we say, I don't care about laws, or before we bristle at the thoughts of do's and don'ts, we should understand that the commandments show us who God is and what he is like. These profound truths tell us what matters to God, and in turn, what should matter to us. Second observation, when we obey God's commands, it sets us apart from the world. As Christians, we must be prepared to live by a higher standard of moral purity. We have values that the world will not understand. We are God's people. We're set apart to live according to his ways. And thirdly, the 10 Commandments don't strip our freedom from us, but instead provide freedom for us. The 10 Commandments are not a list of rules. The commands prove that God wants mankind to be free. He said, I am the Lord your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. In following God's commands, it frees us from the terrible consequences of sin and makes our lives better and worthwhile. In giving us guidelines or laws, God is not trying to smother us with red tape and regulations. The 10 Commandments are not prison bars, but more like traffic laws. Maybe there are some anarchists who think out there that the world would be a better place without traffic laws, but in fact, a few people drive as though there were no traffic laws. About a month ago, I was driving to work when at the intersection of Walnut and County Center, someone ran a red light right in front of me. And sure enough, I looked and one of our faithful Visalia PD officers was chasing him, and he was so desperate to get away that he was willing to do such a dangerous and really stupid thing. And I was about ready to stop and try to help the officer, but I realized, every one of their police cars has a radio. So I'm sure they got the dude. But safe driving is not only common sense, but it's good for all of us. And we have to obey the traffic signs. If we do, we'll be safer, and they're put there for our own good. If you are going to visit the giant sequoias that are east of Visalia on Highway 198, you will drive up one of the most winding and spectacular roadways in America. In 20 miles, the highway ascends 7,000 vertical feet. And there's some amazing, wonderful views. Many of you have experienced that. But on the way, I noticed the other day that there are over 25 hairpin turns that are marked 20 miles per hour or slower. And they also have erected a great stone wall that helps keep people on the road. And wouldn't it be silly to disregard those signs, those parameters for us as we would drive up such a beautiful roadway, because they do keep us from the precipice. And they put those rock walls there at great expense. And as I said, for our own good, and they help us travel safely to our destination. In the same light, it's been said that a river without banks has no forward motion. A river without parameters has no direction. So also a life without spiritual parameters has no direction. And in the same thought, the Ten Commandments are not merely instructions of how to get out of Egypt, but they are rules for direction, for a free people to stay free. My fourth observation is that the Ten Commandments achieve for us a universal moral code that can sustain any culture that is willing to embrace the blessings that come from obeying the commands. They are far more trustworthy from our intuition or cultural codes. The Ten Commandments give all people a foundational moral standard which is necessary for all civilized societies. We live in a paradoxical age where many will say, right is wrong and wrong is right, and I decide for myself what is right. But if we want to know right from wrong, and if we want to live an admirable life, if we want to know how to live in a way that blesses our neighbors, then we would be wise to live our lives by such parameters that are more grand and enduring than our own opinions. The Ten Commandments, as well as the primary instruction from Jesus, our living commandment, will save us from ourselves. The fifth observation is that the Ten Commandments achieve for us the teachings of the ethics of the New Testament, as well as our foundation for making disciples. The church has historically put the Ten Commandments at the center of its teaching ministry, especially for children and new believers. In other words, when people ask, how do we do discipleship? How do we teach our kids about the Bible? What do new Christians need to know about Christianity? Their answers always include an emphasis on foundational direction of the Ten Commandments. In relationship to the Ten Commandments, 800 years ago, author Thomas Aquinas echoed the words of Jesus, saying the entire law of Christ depends upon love. And love depends on two precepts. First is loving the Lord our God with all our heart, soul, mind, and strength. And secondly, to love our neighbor as ourselves. Obviously, the ancient Ten Commandments are still relevant for us Christians today. There are many blessings that we have that have been passed on to us through them. For example, the Ten Commandments are the foundational principles that underlie the judicial system in America. They also serve us and our need for some moral absolute parameters in our lives, and the commandments also show us a way to live. As Jesus taught, the greatest commandment is to love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and your neighbor as yourself. We still need these words that were handed down to Moses at Mount Sinai. If we want to love Christ as he deserves and as he instructed us, we will keep his commands, as he said in John chapter 14. If you love me, you'll obey my commands. Jesus taught us that the ultimate sign of love is obedience. As we obey the Lord and his precepts, we'll show him that we love him and honor his divine direction for our lives. Let us do our very best to honor God's precepts in these momentous times. God bless you. I hope these thoughts inspire you and cause you to look into Exodus 20. Hope to see you Sunday. God bless.